Let's talk about a feeling you know well. It's that quiet, persistent whisper in the back of your mind that says, if only. If only I had the new phone, the one with the better camera. If only I got that promotion, that title. If only I had 10,000 more followers, a bigger apartment, a partner who looked like that. If only I could afford that perfect vacation I see all over my feed. Then the whisper promises with absolute certainty. Then I would finally be happy. This is what psychologists call the arrival fallacy. The mistaken belief that when you arrive at a certain destination, you will be delivered a lasting state of happiness. We live our entire lives under the spell of this fallacy, chasing one horizon after another. We are citizens of a culture that preaches a single, relentless gospel, the gospel of more. More is better, more success, more possessions, more experiences, more validation. We treat our lives like a video game, constantly grinding to level up, acquire new gear, and unlock the next achievement, believing that true satisfaction lies just beyond the next boss fight. But it never does it? You get the phone, and for a week it's a marvel of technology, and then it's just a piece of glass in your pocket. You get the promotion, and after a month of excitement, the new salary just becomes your new baseline, and you're already looking at the next rung on the ladder. The goalposts for happiness are on a hidden mechanism, and they move every time we get close. This is the infamous hedonic treadmill. We run, we work, we gain, we adapt, and we end up back at the exact same psychological starting point, just with a new, more expensive set of desires. We are running ourselves to exhaustion, but staying in the exact same place. What if we are running in the wrong direction entirely? What if the whole premise is a trap? What if the path to true freedom and wealth isn't about acquiring more, but about wanting less? 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus laid out this radical and liberating alternative. He taught us that freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. This idea is a direct assault on every instinct our modern world has cultivated in us. Eliminate desires? Isn't desire the engine of ambition, the source of progress? But Epictetus saw it differently. He made a crucial distinction. There are desires that are natural and necessary for food, for water, for shelter, for basic human connection. These are easy to satisfy and are not the source of our misery. Then, there are the desires that are artificial and unnecessary for fame, for luxury, for power, for other people's approval. These desires, he argued, are infinite. They are a black hole. You can throw your entire life into them, and they will never be filled. Epictetus, from his vantage point in the Roman Empire, a society of grotesque wealth and brutal poverty, understood a fundamental truth. Every artificial desire you have for something outside your control is a chain you willingly wrap around your own neck. When you say, "I need that person's approval to be happy," you have made them your master. Your emotional state is now their property, to be given or taken away at their whim. When you say, "I must have that luxury car to feel successful," you have become a slave to a piece of metal and plastic. For Epictetus, the desire itself, the intense craving for an external thing, is the source of your bondage. Satisfying the desire only provides a temporary release, a brief parole from your self-imposed prison, but it doesn't set you free. In fact, modern neuroscience shows it often strengthens the underlying neural pathway of craving, making the chain even heavier for next time. The only way to truly break the chain, Epictetus taught, is to dissolve the desire itself. He saw this firsthand. He lived in a Rome drowning in opulence. The elite class held lavish banquets, consuming exotic foods until they were sick, only to vomit so they could continue eating. They were slaves to their appetites. This is not an exaggeration. The Roman general and politician Crassus was arguably the wealthiest man in Rome. He owned vast amounts of land and silver mines. By any measure, he had everything. But his desire for more wealth, and more military glory to rival Caesar was insatiable. This desire led him to launch an ill-advised, greedy invasion of Parthia. He was defeated, captured, and, according to legend, executed by having molten gold poured down his throat, a grim, poetic symbol of his own destructive desire. He was a man who had everything, but it meant nothing because he always wanted more. He died a slave to that want. This same drama plays out today. The arena has just changed. The modern desire for online validation, for example, is a perfect digital reenactment of this trap. A person posts, they get likes. They feel a rush of dopamine. The desire for recognition is temporarily satisfied, but this only deepens their need for a bigger hit of validation tomorrow. They become a slave to the algorithm, their mood dictated by fluctuating engagement metrics that they do not control. Epictetan freedom would be the ability to create, to express, to live, without needing the applause. It is the elimination of the desire for external validation. This leads us to the second, complementary pillar of his worldview. If freedom is the inner state of having no master, then what is wealth? Epictetus gives us a definition that turns our modern understanding on its head. He says that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This is a mathematical equation for happiness. We think that wealth is a single number, your net worth. Epictetus saw it as a ratio, a gap between what you have and what you want. You can close that gap and thus become wealthy in two ways. The world screams at you to choose the first way, increase what you have. The Stoic calmly suggests the second way, decrease what you want. This path is more reliable, entirely within your control, and infinitely more peaceful. There is no story that illustrates this principle more powerfully than the famous encounter between Alexander the Great and Diogenes the Cynic. Alexander was the epitome of having great possessions. Diogenes was the epitome of having few wants. He lived in a clay pot and owned nothing but a cloak. The story goes that Alexander, intrigued by this man, went to see him. He found Diogenes sunning himself. Alexander, the master of the world, approached the man who owned nothing and said, "Ask of me any boon you like." This was the ultimate test. The man who had everything was offering anything to the man who had nothing. Diogenes didn't ask for a house, for gold, or for power. He simply looked up at the emperor and said, "Stand out of my sunlight." In that moment, who was the richer man? Who was the more powerful man? Was it the man who was restlessly trying to conquer the world because he always needed more? Or the man whose needs were so few that the most powerful person on earth had nothing to offer him but the return of his own shadow? Diogenes was wealthier because the gap between what he had and what he wanted was zero. This wasn't just an idea for radical outsiders. It was a core principle of Roman virtue. Consider the story of Cincinnatus, a Roman statesman. In a time of grave national emergency, he was granted the title of absolute dictator to save Rome. He left his small farm, led the army, defeated the enemy, and saved the republic. And then he did something unthinkable. He willingly, immediately, relinquished his absolute power and returned to his life as a simple farmer. He had no desire for power, no attachment to status. His wealth was not in his title, it was in his character. He had few wants, and so he could not be corrupted. These ideas from Epictetus are not about forcing yourself into poverty. They are about a strategic and intentional curation of your desires. It's the understanding that the ultimate luxury is not a fancy car, but a mind that is not constantly craving one. The ultimate status symbol is not a designer watch, but a mind that does not need to check the time on an expensive object to feel valuable. The philosophy of Epictetus, then, is a complete reversal of our modern economy. It is based on a few key principles. First, live by an internal scorecard, not an external one. The external scorecard is your job title, your bank account, your follower count. It is volatile and entirely dependent on others. The internal scorecard is your character, your integrity, your efforts. This is the only scorecard that a Stoic cares about. Your wealth is measured by the quality of your character, not the quantity of your possessions. Second, practice intentional simplicity. The Roman Stoic Seneca, a contemporary of Epictetus, would periodically practice poverty. For a few days, he would eat the plainest food and wear his simplest clothes. He did it to train himself, to remind his mind that his happiness was not dependent on luxury. It was an inoculation against the fear of loss, because he knew he could be content with very little. We can do this today. A digital Sabbath away from the desire engine of the internet. A weekend of simple food and quiet walks. This practice recalibrates our sense of need and cultivates gratitude for what we already have. Ultimately, Epictetus teaches that your richest possession is a well-ordered mind. A mind that is free from the tyranny of unnecessary desire can find joy and purpose in the simplest things. It can extract abundance from a simple meal, a good conversation, or the warmth of the sun on your skin, something a man like Diogenes knew was more valuable than anything an emperor could offer. We started by talking about the endless race on the hedonic treadmill, the gospel of more. The alternative offered by Epictetus is not a philosophy of grim deprivation. It is a joyful, liberating path to a more durable and profound form of wealth and freedom. It is the discovery that you already have everything you need to be truly content. The power lies not in adding more to your life, but in subtracting the desires that are holding you hostage. Remember the words of Epictetus, the twin pillars of this philosophy of true abundance. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. And wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Stop chasing, start wanting less, and discover the incredible freedom and wealth you already possess. Thank you for joining us at the Inner Citadel. If this idea resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more tools to build a resilient and abundant mind. We'll see you next time.